That Sober Guy podcast contains adult content, merciless truth, and emotional nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm Shane Raymer. You're listening to That Sober Guy podcast, and we help people stay sober. Good to be here today. Glad you're here too. If it's your first time here, welcome. You are in the right place. I promise you that. We got a great episode for you today. Lots of good things coming your way. Should probably give a little shout out to my homies Humans all the way from Canada. If you like this intro song, check out Humans music. Some very good dudes and great musicians as well. You're never bringing me down. Our guest today is my new friend and recovery brother, Static. Super pumped to have him on the podcast today. Static is a professional guitarist and multi-instrumentalist, best known for his 16 years in the band Hours. He's also the owner and creator of NoiseRoom Studio. He's been in recovery since 2012. We're going to dive into that, of course. And then one of the things I'm really excited to talk about as well is he's an avid sober advocate and mentor, and he works with at-risk youth for New York City-based organization Road Recovery. So we're going to get into all that in just a minute. But first, be sure to check us out at thatsoberguy.com. You can follow us on Instagram at That Sober Guy Podcast. You can check out the Locals community. We've got a good sober community going on there. Lots of good people joining up. It's kind of like Instagram meets Patreon. So if you want to help support us and be part of a growing sober community to help stay accountable and, of course, have some fun, because what the hell is recovery if you're not having fun? I'd love to have you join that right now. You can download the Locals app, or you can go to that Sober Guy podcast.locals.com. Both those links are in the show notes as well. And then also, if you're interested, if it's early recovery, we have lots of good resources for you. There's some meetings, of course, the podcast. We have the Locals, which I mentioned, Locals group, all kinds of good stuff going on. We also have how to navigate the first 90 days of sobriety. I got together. Those 90 days are crucial, right? And we got together some doctors, some of my friends, some podcasters, some people in recovery, and we just talked about it. What do the first 90 days look like? What worked? What didn't work? What did we learn in that experience? And we have over 160 people who've taken the course. We've had lots of good feedback. You can go to thatsoberguy.com, click on courses there if you're interested in checking it out. Once again, all those links will be in the show notes today. All right, so all that stuff aside, I'm super pumped to have my buddy Static here today. We become new friends fast. He's a great dude. He is doing lots of good work, and I'm excited to have him on the podcast, man. It's good to be here with you today, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm excited to be here with you. This is awesome.
Yeah, dude. Good times, man. And I guess we met in a meeting, right? Lots of good Zoom meetings going on these days, and so I want to encourage everyone out there, like, don't use the excuse like I did right at first, like, I can't go to a in-person meeting, so screw it, I'm not going. Man, there's so much good stuff happening in some Zoom rooms these days. But what is going on with you? You're out in New York City. You're doing all kinds of different things, serving, all kinds of good stuff. Yeah, man, good to have you on the podcast as well.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I agree with you. Zoom is incredible. It has brought the world of recovery, it made it like this big. We're all in front of each other. We get to meet people from all these amazing places. It's like it's incredible. It couldn't have been any better solution. And it happened rather quick this time of, we're a solution-based program, and I guess we found a solution together. I live in the suburbs of New Jersey, although if I go to the top of a hill, I can see the New York skyline. So I have deer and turkey and an occasional black bear in my black bear in my backyard. Yeah. But if I get on a train, I could be under Madison Square Garden in 40 minutes.
Damn.
So it's a great blend. It's kind of like, I guess, living in the Hollywood Hills, maybe not as fancy.
Yeah.
A big part of what I do previous to being virtual was working with at-risk youth as a great balancer. I found it in my sobriety that I wanted to help others. And the cool thing about being a professional musician was there's downtime.
Yeah.
And the downtime is when I was probably dancing with my demons prior. But then when I found a different way to live, I had time to help others. And that's so I work with at-risk youth through an organization called Road Recovery, as you mentioned, in New York City. And we would go to all these different spots. Like you would go work in Queens for a while, you would go to the Bronx, you would go to Lower Manhattan, and then they had some stuff in New York State. And if you felt like making the drive, you would do that. Or they would find just people like me or the rest of the staff to do those areas. And, we went virtual. So now I get to work from home. and you can say like, that part's awesome. I don't get to go anywhere, even though I miss being involved directly. But now we have no mileage.
Yeah.
So now we're easily reaching every kid that could be a part of it. Right now it's all over New York State. Places that, and if people aren't familiar, New York State is giant.
Yeah.
I mean, it could take, there's, I think one section might be like a 12. I don't know. There's the lengths of New York State are far. So it's not like, let's get in a car and go to Rochester,
Yeah. You got to drive a little bit. What's the age group, as far as the kids go? Does it go, like, what does that look like?
So it varies as well, because road recovery has a wide reach. And the one thing that's connected is, I know the word recovery is involved, but it's not about just alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
Even though some of the staff members might have that in their story, the idea with young people is anybody that faces an adversity. And adversity defines as many different ways. My actual way I connect mostly with young people isn't the sober story, even though they might find the music story exciting, is that I was later diagnosed with what I call differences in learning abilities, but is often used the term learning disabilities into a aggressive 15-year-old dude in the early 90s. That was me. When teachers told me that after calling me lazy, it became a big point of anger and frustration. And I kind of combated even that they wanted to help me. So, and it does tie into my using story, but so that's an adversity I get to relate to the young people with, is like trouble in school, trying to communicate maybe how something's going. They might not have the same issues as I had with dyslexia and et cetera, but everybody has that moment where you don't communicate just right with and I don't want to call a teacher an authority figure, but when you have the wrong teacher, they might feel like an authority figure.
Sure. Yeah,
They're not helping you on a journey. So that's a way we connect. And then there's like the ones that are that help affect young people often are, it could be eating disorders. It could be youth that have self-harm, grew up in home situations that aren't necessarily safe or inspiring. And you can almost list it all. And then we work with those kind of youth. And that could be from any age, from depending on what cycle or what we're with, it could be as young as 8 or 9 and as old as like 22.
Wow.
And then there's a component where we worked with alternative to incarceration. New York State was trying to really do this whole campaign, raise the age, because there were 16-year-olds going to Rikers Island.
Damn.
And
that's crazy.
There's very few things you could do at 16 years old that should put you in that level of incarceration. So they have alternative to incarceration programs. They have when people get out on a short, I don't know what the right word is. It's funny because we have people who work with us who've been in, also if that's their part of their story, and they just talk real quick. They're like, do a short stint, do a bid. And my story has nothing to do with that. So I was like, I don't know what that means, but I guess whatever your time in prison or incarceration would be.
Yeah.
So there's that component too. So it's really, it's endless. It's always growing, and we're always looking to grow too. So it's just whoever we can help the best possible way.
Well, in growth, I hope to see it out on the West Coast someday. We talked I think I'd asked you that last time. And so I know that there's who knows what the future holds in that aspect. Do you find, it's kind of a dumb question, I think, but I would imagine that you find it extremely rewarding. And does it help your own recovery too?
Yes. So it is incredibly rewarding. And my first taste of it was I was working in a for-profit music education program in around the time I got sober. And there's always reward in sharing information with somebody who wants it. Yeah. But during that time, the founders of Road Recovery reached out to me, and it was like 3 months into my time working with this music school, and they're like, listen, we do this thing that your musicianship helps, but it's more about you being vulnerable and connecting. And as soon as I had my first day it was a group home for behaviorally, I don't know the right word, so I don't want to mess up the words, so like whatever today's word is for, but like people have behavioral issues, I guess would be, or just differences in behavior. And some of those group homes, those kids were in there and they weren't going anywhere for a while. Yeah. I walked in, they told me there'd be equipment there, but that meant amplifiers, not guitars. So I had no guitar. And I had to stand in the middle of the room. I realized everybody wanted to dance or do rap. And that's what they said. What's your favorite music? Like, we love hip hop. We want to do a cypher. I'm like, great. I love playing drums. So I started kicking the floor, clapping my hands until they were raw for 45 minutes because I had nothing else with me. And I came back. People were like, what was it like? I'm like, this was the best day ever. It was just like, you were in it. And everybody that's there, when they know that program's happening, they wanted to be there. So that's that not like your mom sends you to play soccer, but you hate soccer, which sometimes happens with a music school.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I picked up on right when you started to answer that was you said something about if people want the help. So how do you deal or how do you approach maybe somebody, whether it's youth or maybe even someone else in recovery when they don't want the help, man? That's so hard. And I get that question a lot, like, my dad out there, my brother or your friend, whatever. It's like, they don't want the help. And it's very frustrating. I've been in that in my own situation. How do you approach that?
So with my own time in recovery, like learning how to suggest politely, be attractive, not don't advertise, don't push. We never push it. Also, the two founders, Gene Bowen and Jack Bookbinder, have been doing this way longer than I even been, like way longer. Yeah. And what they told me was, and it's their advice, and I try to apply it to my own way, was be open, be vulnerable, and remember, if you reach just one person, you've already changed. You made a ripple.
Yeah, that's good.
And through that, we realize you make an impact. It could be inadvertent. And as I've grown in sobriety and in my own life of like a kind of a service-based life, I realize now the people that made an impact that I didn't want to listen to myself. So when I work with newer creative staff, as we call them, or mentors for the organization, I always remind everybody, do not be discouraged, because I just sent it was like last year, a video birthday card to my principal from 7th grade that turned 80 because me and some kid were screwing around and we broke a door, and he spoke to us. He never treated us like we were doing something wrong. He said, listen, if you go help the shop teacher fix that door, because this is done.
Yeah.
And we're good. And I didn't realize then what he was doing for me, but he helped me become the person I am now.
That's great. That's awesome, dude.
And then I've heard people talk about drugs and alcohol 5 years before I thought I had a problem, but all of a sudden I felt like, ew, why does it hurt? Why do I feel your story? But I didn't understand it. So we can make impacts without necessarily. Yeah. So I don't want to say subliminal, because they use like subliminal messaging as a negative concept. Yeah. But I could say it's like spiritually covert. As long as you do the right thing, it's going to touch somebody.
Well, and I love that too, because it kind of sets us up for a mindset of understanding that we're here and God gives us opportunities sometimes to plant seeds. We don't get to see the fruit of those seeds a lot of the time. And when we can be in that and just be aware of that, I guess it's a little bit easier when, you run into someone and you get that feeling like, man, well, I should have done this, or I should have said it like this, or we can't, it's not our responsibility to take that on and hold on to that. Like, everyone has their own responsibility, to do the work, and they're on their own journey too. So yeah, that's good stuff, man.
And that's important how you mentioned that too, because when people who do have a form of faith that talks about charity and altruism, the first concept is you do it without any expectation of reward,
exactly,
or anything. You're doing it because you want to leave something better than you found it. Yep. Oftentimes, I've been able to give out food or things to people that were homeless, and 9 out of 10 times, sadly, they don't even know you're there. Mm-hmm. But sooner or later, you're still making a difference. And that's kind of with recovery and service that we're also brought in that way. So this is the same thing. Like, we just do it. Yeah. And if we can make it one way or another, we're making a difference. Yep. We're not there for gratification. We're there to help.
That's right. The expectations, man, are just, they will destroy you. I swear, man. It's so many times, every time I put expectations on stuff, it never works out like I thought anyways. You know what I mean? So you just kind of learn to be like, all right, I'm just going to roll with it this time, and whatever happens, guess it'll happen, man. So you've been sober since, I think it's March 2012, right? Is that right? March 2012 or 2012?
Yep, March 2012.
One of the things we got a few notes from when we chatted last week. We had a great talk, man. I really enjoyed that, by the way, dude. That was cool. I felt like we had a meeting, like just two dudes, and like we got to share some stuff and then talk some recovery and life, and it was really good. So I got some notes from that, but I think before we kind of jump into some of that stuff, Myself, and I know those out there listening too, would probably love to hear a little bit about your background, man. I mean, you did half the time as a professional musician, not sober, and then you had another good chunk of your career sober. And so can you kind of give us a little peek into what that looked like?
So meaning like the being sober, not sober. So for me, I joined a band that was already established when I was 26 years old. A lot of members used to come to the music store I worked at, and we were actually friends by that point. Like we already knew each other really pretty well. And there was a shot for me to join the band. And to clarify some things, even though I got to the point where I hit a bottom, I didn't really use heavily during. The band was a non-partying band. It was business first, always. I don't think I was ever on stage intoxicated in that band when I was still using. It was once the show was over, what I found to do for myself after was all bets were off, because we didn't have rules. We had agreements with each other that if we have each other's back, that means we come on stage with a clear mind to make sure that show is going well. And yes, there was times you're having a great show. It's a 15th show into the tour, and maybe shots would come to the stage at the end for the people that maybe drank one shot every 4 months on the road. And then there was me after that show. So I would be like, well, the first one really worked out well. Let's see how 19 more will do. So I was around really good, responsible influences, and the band leader is like a big brother to me. He's a few years older than me, not by much. Like when you get older in high school, we've been like, wow, it's huge. But in old adulthood, it's like only a few years, but years of experience that I never had. I was still a small town kid. This guy's already traveled the world by the time I joined his band. And he gave really good advice that I didn't necessarily fully listen to, about you're going to get off stage, you're going to feel amazing, and you're going to want to chase it. Because I've always felt that excitement from playing. Like I feel the most normal on stage playing an instrument. I feel like an alien in a 4,000-year-old body. Well, 4,000-year-old alien in this body, the other, say, 22 hours, whatever the length of a show was. So drinking connected me to that feeling I needed. So that happened. There were some moments where my drinking definitely made me cranky during sound checks because I was dealing with hangovers. Probably not a joy to be around the morning when we were traveling. There's, everybody in the band at one point held my dreads when I had to I'm open about it. I had to puke on the side of the road, and nobody ever made me feel bad about it. That's why we're family. Even me having to step back. Yeah, exactly. Hold my dreads.
Hold my dreads.
That was a good joke.
It's coming.
It's all I cared about. I'm like not throwing off my dreads because you don't wash dreads every day. Like locks aren't something you can just like, hey, let me just rinse them down. And then they were to my knees for a while, so they were very long. Anyway, so that moves along. But as the time went on and we weren't touring as much, my off time was really when the most damage would be done. And the last few years we weren't on the road as much. I was using too much, and then it kind of within 2 years. It became a real spiraled issue. There were some things that came up during those years that were like first time faces for me. I say the first time you face something, we don't know how to deal with it. So like both my grandparents passed like 2 weeks apart. And I was like trying to have like mature like relationships, but I was picking not the people I should have relationships with. So I was like with somebody that was a complete wreck, and I let it affect me. I just was all over the place, and it needed to stop.
Yeah.
The person that currently met me said, they looked at me, they go, something's wrong with you. And I was just starting a new relationship where they said, this is not normal. Like, and what it is all the signs, if anybody connects themselves to alcoholism and the disease, it's like one's not enough, and you just keep going. You can't manage life without it. And if you choose not to do it, you're still unmanageable. Yeah. And then all the selfish and all these behaviors that connect with that, like the little things that should be important, like a cousin's christening. That's a pretty beautiful event. Yeah. But I look for the bar. Mm-hmm. So I just destroyed that event. Even if no one saw me look for the bar, I didn't do anything crazy. I destroyed the purity of enjoying the celebration of a new family member. Yeah. Getting I guess that side of my family, they're Catholic, so a sacrament would be the word. Yeah. But it's those little things. So around 2012, so I was in the band. I joined in 2003, 2012. Enough was enough. I needed to stop. The amazing part about that was I found great people to help me. I experienced recovery, and then I was still doing my music. And in the beginning, there was a lot of it was called spiritual armor, like the whole spiritual toolbox. I went out there like in the the Iron Man suit of spiritual armor.
Yeah.
Like saying to myself, like, I want to do the right thing. I had nobody, like some people say, oh, my band parties a lot, it's gonna be really hard to get sober. Well, this band doesn't. This band gets good food and jogs.
Yeah.
And they're not like, crazy, like it's not like we always said, like, we're not like a straight edge either. Nothing against being straight edge. Just like they're normal people. Yeah. And if you are straight edge, that's awesome. That's a whole thing that's admirable to me. But there's a whole bunch of people that are normal. Like the mom that has one glass of wine at Christmas that never finishes it. Like my mom. I think she's been nursing the same glass for the last 17 years.
How is that possible? I just don't get it.
It doesn't make sense.
We all know somebody.
The fact I see it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's weird.
No, I love that though. Like you're talking about just, it's kind of a normal quote unquote normal life on the road, getting some exercise, eating some good food, taking care. I mean, I would just kind of say that's extremely professional. It's a very professional approach to, the work that you're doing. And then, but what you're saying is you were very professional during your work, but it's almost like a work hard, party hard type of mentality. So you would work hard, but then when you got done, then you would kind of go and you would just get after it. Is that pretty accurate?
Light the town on fire. Yeah.
Okay.
Like light it up. And then when you're 26, 27, and I still did a lot of morning jogs or whatever we had to do. I was still in good physical condition.
Yeah.
The bounce back wasn't an issue. But then early 30s, I guess I was 33, 34. By that point, now bounce back is an issue.
Yeah.
And then I would have to do things. And there was a few times, I'm not proud of it, that, I would have to like, this is an awful story, but I would take a little bit of Coca-Cola and just put a little bit of beer into it and just do a quick, to go back to normal. Wow. And by the time you have 4 glasses of water in you, I mean, this is disgusting. I hope I don't like saying it because I feel like I'm teaching somebody a trick, but that led me to not being able to do anything. Yeah. So the idea was, but once I was sober, I had to go out there and really take my sobriety seriously and just be comfortable with going to venues and saying, listen, I'm a non-drinker. I just want to know, is there a coffee machine in the place? Is there a way for I get coffee? Do you have any good recommendations? Yeah. And I realized quickly on the road and in the music industry, because we got a stigma for being partiers. I wish the stigma in the music industry was all the people that are normal and the other half that chose a different way. Because as soon as you go to your first after show event as a sober person, you will spot at least half the room drinking water.
Yeah,
it's a huge place for recovery,
yep.
For open recovery. And then when, and it's everybody, once people get sober music, they're not embarrassed of it. It's like a weird, everyone's like, oh, you got to be screwed up to be a rock and roller. I'm like, actually, no, it's the easiest place to say like, I need help. And all of a sudden people are like, oh, wow, we didn't know it was that bad. Go get help.
Yeah.
And then you could be the guy who drinks water and et cetera, et cetera. It's like, I've known people in my recovery program that will never tell people. I work on Wall Street because I live near New York City. So I'm really with that kind of person. And they say like, yeah, we could never let people know at those dinners because they would say something. I'm like, they might not, but I appreciate and respect your stance on that.
Yeah.
I go, thankfully in music, it's just like, you can have whatever you want. So people at venues, super helpful. I found as soon as they would find out, I realized there's a lot of sober bartenders in this world, which later on I actually became at times. And they'd be like, oh no, I got your back, man. I got your back. And all of a sudden, like one person literally put a Mr. Coffee, like coffee pot on my road case and set me up with a coffee station.
That's
and
nice.
Like now in early sobriety, it's important. Yeah. I had snacks. I had everything I needed to never feel off, never tired, never hungry. Halt, I guess, never depressed, whatever, like the whole mix. So it's tools.
I want to point one thing out for those out there listening to in just what Static said right now, and sharing his experience. Like one of the things, if you notice that he did there and that a lot of us in recovery continue to do, it's a really important part of it is whatever work you do, whatever situation you're going into, whatever life is throwing at you, you got to be prepared. You have to pregame. Like you're talking about a mad pregame session before every work, gig, every event, whatever it is. You're already thinking ahead. You're talking to people. Hey, where's a good coffee spots at? You're setting yourself up for success. And it's not always an easy thing to do. It's not going to be perfect, but you have to have a pregame plan, whatever you're going into. I love that, dude. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And then the stuff that we learn in recovery programs, like find meetings locally, have people to call your bros in recovery. Like make sure you just, I practiced everything that was suggested to me. Now, the first year I did it, I was untreated. There's a part of my story where I was 11 months on my own and magically one of the other bands had like a suit. I call him Super Sober Dude, and I didn't know what. Like he literally said to me, "Oh, you don't drink either." He's like, "Hey, want to go to a meeting tomorrow?" I'm like, "I'm not sure I'm into that." And he's like, "All right, cool." He would come back every day and give me a meeting. And I had no idea what was going on.
Really?
Checked in with me. When shows, like sometimes there's after show parties, a little wild. Yeah. We start talking. He's like, "Hey man, I saw a taqueria." I was like, "Yes, let's go." Yeah. Like he helped me also learn this. And then when I got back from that is when I found that there's a program and I don't have to be alone anymore. But then once I had a program, it was like phones, lists, everything. Like
you start getting
meetings everywhere.
Yeah, like the tools you were saying, or the armor. Like it starts coming. Yeah. That's kind of funny. So recovery program actually found you in a sense, which is kind of cool, actually.
A few ways. Yeah, it just came looking for me.
So if we can back up just a little bit, like what did it for you? You said you did it 11 months, almost by yourself. Like, was there a significant moment that helped? Because that's the question we get a lot too, is like, man, how do I know if I have a problem or what? Well, if you're asking that, there's probably, there might be some issues there, but how did you know, like what did it at that final moment where you're like, I'm done with this?
Well, what did at the final moment was I was home. So I was on downtime and I was a spiral and I was a mess. And I had a bunch of rough nights. I was in a new relationship and this person's like, "Yo, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't think you were like this. This is serious. You need to figure this out." And that particular last night is like the classic, one of the many classic last nights we'll hear in the rooms. Like, thankfully, and I'll never forget this. Like, I didn't hurt anybody else. First and foremost. I didn't kill or hurt anybody else that night, but I did drive. I didn't hurt myself. I didn't get in any car accidents, but my car was up on a curb by my house, looking parked like the worst possible parking you can imagine, and my trunk was open, which to this day it's like I just let that go. Like the trunk's open, I had nothing in the trunk. And I looked out the window after having that conversation, and I saw my car, and I was like, well, no matter what, the irresponsibility that had me do that deserves a looking at. And I can't. And then some people say, "Oh, you had one bad night." But no one said I had one bad night, because that's not the first time it happened, but that's the last time it was going to happen. So then I just stopped, thinking that's all I needed to do. Like, oh, I just don't drink anymore, because I didn't know there was other things. And I was afraid to leave my house for like a month and a half, besides like physical job work or going to rehearse with the band. And people were like, "Where have you been, man?" Because I would like hang with a lot of local musicians. We always had these like pop-up, like when people come back from tour and stuff in the area, like pop-up jams, like whatever, at like different bars and stuff like that. I'm like, "I'm not going back." And some dude's like, "Where you been?" I'm like, "Man, I'm trying to dry out. I don't want to drink anymore." He's like, "I got a surprise for you. Please come out." Half that band was sober.
Wow.
Like, see?
Yeah.
We could all drink seltzer and play rock and roll together. And it's like, oh. So I started to feel a little better. Then somebody sent me like on YouTube, for a 12-step recovery program that's kind of well known. They sent people talking about their alcoholism on YouTube, like I call them speaker tapes.
Yeah.
And they sent me like Eric Clapton. So I listened to it. Like, oh, it's cool. Like Eric Clapton's awesome, whatever. And then like Stevie Ray's was like right under it. YouTube just keeps suggesting you to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. I felt just like I related to him in every possible way, except for the virtuosity on the fretboard. Forget that part. And I was just like, that's amazing. I understand. Like what it made me say is I wanted not to ever go back to the way I was. And then I made a little playful thing with myself that I would get like the opening lick to Scuttle Button up to speed by the time I was at least 1 year without alcohol.
No way.
Because then it was still the without concept. Like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
A few months into that, meeting people and they're talking about program and things. I'm like, okay. And I was still kind of like oddly reluctant. And then I was very fortunate. I had a good base of musician friends in Los Angeles. Some of the people you meet too, or I do a lot of them. Yeah. And this guy was like, I looked at him, I go, "Hey man, I'm not feeling 100% squirrely right now, but sometimes I do, but I know I don't ever want to drink again." He's like, "Well, don't look at it that way." He's like, "But let me send you some stuff." So he sent me some stuff to read. Just tell me how you feel. And he broke down to me that there is, in some forms of recovery, we really define clearly. Are you normal? Are you moderate? Or are you really it? And it was like, cocoon. And then a few months after that, I was with a bunch of those guys working in California. And I made a comment. I'm like, "Listen, man, I know you guys don't do this either." I kept saying, "Don't do this. Like, you don't drink. You don't drink. Like you lost something." And they said, "Well, I go, but like this commercial keeps coming on with beer on the TV and it makes me think I want it. They're like, there's a place you could go and you're never alone. So I was flying home the next day. I went back to my hometown and I went into a place that helps people. And from that point on, I was all in. And then I realized I wasn't alone. I wasn't not drinking. I can't drink anymore. I was choosing the new life and I was choosing to live.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't have that way of delivering that like 3 weeks into after being 11 months untreated, because I was off the rails. My mind was a mess. And I realized the mental aspect of this is incredibly powerful. And for me, it was more damaging. I was verbally more damaging to people around me not drinking. So I found the program, which was the day I chose to live. Simple as that. Life got better. And it continued to get better.
So good, man. And you said a lot of things there. One thing that just like punched me in the face right through the screen is you said you felt like you weren't alone anymore. Cause like this shit can just isolate your mind, your body, your spirit. It isolates you and makes you feel so alone. Like I'm the only one who's going through this right now. And then it's just like the domino effect that goes down. And I think that's what I know for me in my experience, what I've found is I've met so many awesome people by getting sober. You know what I mean? It all started with that. And although alcohol is obviously an issue in my life, it's really the tool that I use to cope with the shit in life that I can't deal with. You know what I mean? And so like when I start to get a general understanding of that by being around other people, and like you said, you heard somebody share who you related to, that's when stuff kind of starts clicking in. So I guess what I'm getting at is the community piece of this is so friggin' important. Like you have to be around other people, whether it's in Zoom or in person or wherever it is. I mean, you've probably met, how many great people have you met in recovery? Like over the years? I mean, it's probably endless.
At this point, majority of the people I know are people I met in recovery.
Yeah. Yep. Because those relationships
I still have my real close friends.
Yeah.
But there's a whole new life I was given. Yeah. All friends I made that never ever saw me drink.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That I probably wouldn't have became friends with if I was drinking, because I would have walked right past them to go straight for the bar.
Because that's the most important thing at any event, a christening. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
You're not present. You're not present for life at all. You're in a race, a constant race for something that is gonna make it worse.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So. It doesn't stop either. So give us a little look, man. Like what's life, what's life like today? I know you have your own studio. I know that you're still actively working like crazy, man, super involved, with road recovery and just doing the thing. Like being sober is awesome.
Well, yeah, it's absolutely awesome. And it helped me. So it's no elephant. What's a road? There's an elephant in a room. Mm-hmm. There's no elephant in a room that most of us have been on some sort of lockdown for over a year.
Yeah.
So I was supposed to work in New York City on March 13th, me and one of my good friends in recovery who's part of road recovery. The other aspect to mention with road recovery real quick is the other people there are music industry professionals who've also dealt with this. So I was also surrounded by just like the wise men.
Yeah.
Like and women, people have been there a long time. So you're never alone there. So even in a work situation where work could get stressful, you're with solution-based people that you just kind of go, all right, powwow. And you're back into like, you're in a circle, familiar. We talk about it, put our principles before our personalities, and then off back to the solution. It's all solution, all power away. So anyway, we were supposed to go to New York, and you get a call, and I was already in New York a bunch of days that week in March, and they were saying I backed up an artist, a friend of mine at the Birdland Jazz Club. I'd never been there before, and it was already like the attendance was already gutted. There was like quarter to people, like people didn't even turn in their tickets, like that kind of gutted. Wow. Like it was a sold out show pretty much, and there's like nobody there. Damn. And we realized, oh, this is serious what they're talking about. Then we get a call, you cannot come to work today. They're closing down all the clubhouses. Clubhouses are where the young people go. It's kind of overseen by the state of New York. So they make decisions early on purpose, thankfully, and they made the decision early. And the funny thing was the city was the Corona section of Queens. You're like, huh. So me and this older guy, and I say older guy, not by age, even though he is older, it's like he's been around a long time in the program. So we just said, all right, I guess we're here because we're buddies. We live near each other. So he goes, put some coffee on. We started reading some literature of the program we're in. It gave me this feeling of like, lifted me up and hope that like it did the first time I was ever in a meeting. And this is like 8 years later now. It was right after I celebrated 8 years. And we basically just said, you know what, we'll get through this. He calls within 2 days. There's Zoom meetings. My recovery at this point has me having a lease. That was a big one. I never lived anywhere. I was completely nomadic. So 2 years into this, when COVID hits, I'm already paying for rent. I have a lease in my name. I'm not couch surfing. Nothing against it. I mean, when I wouldn't change any of some of the stuff I did back then. I'm not shacking up with people I'm not really thinking about a long-term relationship with. At this point, I'm living with the love of my life. I have a cat. I have these things that sound like that's normal stuff. Yeah. Not normal for me. I take the filters out of those air conditioners. You know you're supposed to clean those?
Yeah.
I learned that 5 years into sobriety. Like, oh, that's why it's not supposed you're supposed to see through this, huh? So I'm cleaning my filters. I'm doing my chores. I'm living a good relationship. I looked at the person I'm with because thankfully we're super functional. We try to keep ourselves accountable. And she's an actress, and that was, we know Broadway got closed, the whole thing. Yeah. And we looked at each other and said, well, now we've already had 3 days together where we've been together the whole day, which is something we've always really enjoyed and want. We're eating meals together. We're doing chores, like everything that we thought was a gift. Let's solve this. So we basically blocked out the news. And this is not saying that bad stuff wasn't happening and people weren't getting sick. It's just that I'm not sick right now.
Yeah.
And we're going to block out the news because all they're going to tell us at this point is the same thing regurgitated. And if the zombies are actually going to come, we'll know anyway. I don't need the news. You'll see the smoke. You'll hear the sirens, the helicopters. All the signs will be there. Let's be available to whoever needs us. Let's be available to our family. We have older people in the family. If we got to do grocery runs, made sure we were open to that. And we started watching a lot of Jack Canfield, who's just really inspiring. Yeah. She loves him. And then I went to see him speak like a month before this even happened with her. And he was posting right at the gate. He goes, battle it with optimism, battle it with this. And then my buddy Tommy, who I'm friends with, he always says he goes, gratitude with attitude. Like we get like real aggressive and we went to solve a problem. So we just put it out of our minds. We came up with things to do. We stayed busy. The organization went virtual in 2 weeks when every other organization was closed. So we were back to work by April 1st.
That's awesome.
And it wasn't a joke. It wasn't April Fool's Day for us. And a year into this, I realized before the closures that I wanted, my studio was building up and I really love collaborating at this point. In my 40s, I said to myself, there's a point where I just really want to be able to play with lots of people. I loved being in the same band the whole time I was there, super loyal about it. But there's a point where I wanted to play with other people. I wanted to have time to make records with other people. And I love widgets. In sobriety, I learned how to play synthesizers and work with Pro Tools and Ableton and edit. Yeah. And that's part of my role at Road Recovery is teaching young kids how to make beats. Nice. And I'm like, I want to play with these knobs. So I was already saying I want to be like this. I called it remote studio musician because I had all the gear. Yeah. I was making all my samples. Like, this is how I do a hard rock miking and like doing all the stuff you're supposed to do. Maybe people will be into it.
Yeah.
And people weren't too quick yet. But then now everybody's home. So with the first month in, thankfully, people are sitting around a lot. You're getting those texts like, dude, I haven't talked to you in 2 years. How you been? And you start talking. He's like, I'm working on this song. You want to play some guitar? Sure. And there I am, my buddy Ravi, who's this, he's like a renowned drumming DJ, Ravi Drums or Ravi Chakodia from LA. He's like, playing this song. So I'm playing on these songs for him because we're just having a blast.
Yeah.
He lands the song in the whole Southern California graduation ceremony.
Oh, no way.
It's the backdrop that year. And him and the singer, Jeremy, was incredible. They filmed it in Orange County, like on the beach, on the rocks. And I couldn't be there. And I was like, oh, it looks so awesome. But obviously I couldn't be there. There's a little clip of me playing in my driveway because the sun's out. And you're like, that's not California. Like, is that a deer? Like, what's going on? But the point is, I was able to be a part of things and people were being open and receptive. So just running with enthusiasm. Kira created a whole career of content writing for people and marketing that out of nowhere. So we're working and we're super happy. I hope during this time, the people that found solutions and understand that remote work, if you like it, gives you your family. Absolutely. It gives you time for other things that, yes, it's okay to be driven. It's okay to be successful. It's okay to want everything out of your career, but there's a lot of stuff to be present for. I never knew my neighbors. And then I would talk to them from the driveway. Like when we were kids, like you and I are like the same age. Depending on where you live, like you rode bikes, you knew your neighbors, you talked to everybody. And now you just drive to the store and ignore life.
I know.
So it was like sobriety made me more present to see there's beautiful trees around me. This kicked it back a notch where everybody else could go on the ride together and I could use the tools I already learned in sobriety, which is solution, being present, and one day at a time.
So good,
and
bro.
here we are. Now I have a name for the studio and a website and a logo, and working with people. Worked with a few bands already, producing songs, and some people are remote. Some people we do safe distance situation, whatever works for everybody's own comfort level. I have enough space to create that. In the beginning, I was tracking vocals on my porch. I would have the mic set up, everything that would come in. I had the blankets up to and we would just be like through the window, like, "Hey!"
Okay,
and I was like, "Well, that worked out great. Here's your door. Here's my door."
That's legit, man.
So I it's the best year of my life in certain ways.
So I mean, damn, dude, I was trying to, you said so much good stuff in there. I can't wait to go back and listen. No, that was freaking
Too much
great
coffee.
because I had like, it was like boom, boom, boom. I'm trying to remember everything. The first one, Jack Canfield, I had the pleasure and opportunity of having him on the podcast, like a few years back, man. And I just remembered that when you said that, my buddy Larry Hagner from the Good Dad Project helped hook that up. And I think he had just put out his book. I think it's the 30-day sobriety solution. And he had shared about his relationship with his son and going through some of those things. So that was really, 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 really cool. So I just, that came to mind right there.
He's so
great,
special.
Dude. Yeah. Great dude. A lot of good things to say. Sounds like you guys read and listen to a lot of his stuff too, which is cool. The other thing, man, I think that comes up in all of that is the ability to adjust, the ability to adapt, the ability to go through change and not lose it, because it is easy to do that if we're not present and aware through that time. And, all of us, in this life have been thrown a lot of different things. I know our family is dealing with some of our own things, with just the change and COVID stuff, and everyone kind of has their own take on it. But you said it so great about the reality piece of it too. Like, reality is what's in front of me, like my family, my friends, like what, and we talked a little bit about that last week, like what is, what does that look like for us, for our family? How can we help other people? We don't need to be blinded by this media pandemic is really what I like to call it. It's, and that's no disrespect to actual people who have gotten sick by any means, but like the media fear behind it all, man, it's brutal if you let it get to you. So we got to do what's right in front of us, I think is kind of what I'm trying to get at.
It's incredibly important to be able to step aside of it. I'm not trying to say like be all, I hate the media, but I have very limited attention span and use for anything that brings anybody extra heightened level of fear of anxiety. Yep. This is not how we are supposed to be as living human beings. And for the most part, even if you don't have a connected religion, we are spiritual beings, or at least solution beings. Yep. Most people want something bigger, and it doesn't help. There's somebody I love once in a while to listen to. He's not for everybody, but he has a T-shirt that says "Media, most effective devil in America." And that's pretty harsh. And some people could be like, "That guy's a dick," meaning me, and possibly the guy who wrote the shirt. But it kind of reminds you, just take the information you can, and if you hear information that clicks with you, go find it in a million ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, don't just listen to that one point of view, because they've already proven they're polarized. We don't have a central point of view. Yeah. A central point of view is, if you ever listen to like science tapes with scientists, there's no emotion.
Yeah, it's science.
Facts. If you want to buy a car, you're going to look at one website to buy a car. If you want to buy a new microphone, you're going to watch one review on Sweetwater.
Dude, I sit there for hours.
You're going to look at all the reviews.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's how I take my news. And the thing is, again, they already told us you can't go anywhere. So what's going on in my family? Calling my sister. We all live near each other. What's mommy doing? She's not working now? Yep. Cool. Do you need me to drop off groceries? Oh, you got that? And then we live in a small town. There's like the local supermarket where you literally can't go in there without talking to people. Yeah. It's like they were putting up things where whoever wants to donate, and it wasn't like there was big donation structures. And if you could do that, you could always help somebody. Yeah. But our community banded together. Yeah, we all got on phone lists, like younger people that would shop for the elderly, like that kind of.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Because that's what we're missing from this world a lot. And I think hopefully people take this as a lesson that lady next door might need help, or guy, and be aware of them.
We don't need to, like, so here's a line out of one of the books. God gave us brains to use, and we have the ability as human beings to think and critically think and weigh out pros and cons and look at different opinions and different facts and different things, and then take that and base whatever research you did and thoughts you had, then kind of form your own opinion on it. And I think I'm just trying to kind of piggyback on what you're saying. We don't have to look at one thing and that's not the obvious truth, because I only know what I've been told, number one, and I only know what I've experienced. Those are the two, what I've been told and what I've experienced. And if I go on my experience, it's probably going to be a little bit more accurate than what I've been told my whole life, regardless of what it is, you know? Excuse me. So I want to, how are you on time right now, by the way? I'm
noon. Fine.
Okay.
You look like a Force ghost right now, though. You kind of got grayed out a little bit.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me see here. Oh,
at first you were like super gray, like that episode of Black Mirror where they make people erase people.
That's
and now you're kind of glowing in like Obi-Wan.
Huh. What's going on there? That's strange. Let's see here. Let's see if I can mess. Is it a lighting thing?
That we got to put a filter on your voice now to go with the look.
An alien filter. Let's see if I turn this off real quick. If I turn the video off, let's see if that helps at all. Huh? Strange. I don't know. In any case, we have audio, so that's fine, and at least I'm not completely blanked out. But one of the questions I wanted to get a little bit more, I wanted you to dive a little bit deeper on, if you don't mind, was and this is just for our homies and friends and those we don't know who may, whatever work you do, particularly maybe the entertainment industry, but any work I think this applies to, the difference between working sober and not being sober, like the level of expertise that would, tend to come out more being sober versus not. Was that a huge difference? And then caveat to that, I know I'm giving you like 3 questions here, but I think this is super important too. A lot of people think, including myself, when I went to treatment, because I love playing some guitar and singing and writing some music too, I felt like, at least I thought, that I had lost the ability to be creative because I didn't have my tool of alcohol or drugs there to help with that. Was that a myth for you?
That's a myth for me, definitely. And I think because I had experiences, since I'll answer in different orders. Okay. I had experiences right away, because that first month and a half I told you I hid in my house. Yeah. But I was practicing a lot of guitar. I was like, I liked what Stevie Ray said. Let me learn a bunch of songs now. Like, I never really learned other people's songs. I'm like digging into let's just pick one of the best guitar players on the planet and try to learn his licks. So I'm kind of going through that. And I remember going out to jam for the first time after a month and a half. Mm-hmm. And all I could say is, like, when I used to jam and I wasn't, like, again, in the band I was in, we weren't on stage using, but when I would take other jobs, like with local stuff, and I was home, of course I was partying and I would play, and I would feel like there was either stumbles or I'd run out of ideas. And I like improvisational music a lot. So it was an improv situation with this R&B and blues band. And I remember just going, and then after like that term that kind of comes around in the music, it's either 16 bars, measures worth of, in blues, you get a 16 bar solo, band leader thinks you're cooking, they give you the nod. And if they kind of keep it, and the guy kept giving me the nod because I was apparently telling a story and I was in the moment. And it felt like it was just all coming out of me, direct connection. And I always had that connection in the band I was in, but I never necessarily had it outside. And then it made sense. We never drank on stage.
Yeah.
And we were super rehearsed and super focused. But when I was out on other situations, if I was using, it was like, let me blaze through this and whatever. And I started feeling things locking in. I started noticing the subtleties of time manipulation, or who's dropping the ball, who's sliding in the wrong note, like things. And even when I wasn't using in the band on stage, my lethargy from maybe drinking too much or being a little off, because you're still in a fog. If you drink a lot and you don't drink on stage, you're still fogged out, in my opinion, from my experience. Yeah. And I would either have a superstar night and then followed by the worst night. And then sobriety to me in my profession, which I think has served lots of professions, was I was consistent.
Yeah.
I was reliable. So I would I would do my job, because my job is not to show off. And 'cause I'm not the focus of it. It's important to support the band as a whole. It's a power of we thing. A band is a unit. And I played consistently. And then you still have those moments where, like, oh, we really got it. But you know what went away? There were none of these. There were none of, like, oh, my bads. They were all going away.
Yeah.
They were all just sitting, like, you have a really good, solid show. The audience had a great experience. And then every once in a while, like, you you kind of like, you got it. You went to the sky and pulled in that extra thing that just like, you have like a whoa moment. And I'm not even sure if the audience had the whoa moment. It's just that I felt more and more connected, and I got more and more connected. But there was other things I did. There's breathing, all these different ways to change your perspective, eating well, good food, good coffee, eating right for the performance. If the backstage was stressful, like not again, it's not with the band, but any kind of situations going on, I would try to practice like breathing myself down and just start surrounding myself in different colors of light in my head and try to draw silence in a rock venue. And I would get myself to the point where I was hearing nothing and I was just talking myself in. I used every possible way
crazy,
I could to like level.
It's a loud environment to completely be able to block out in that moment. I guess it's a testament to the power of the mind. I found out what the camera thing was about too. I think it's my hot ass breath or something was like blowing on the camera. And so I literally took my thumb and I just wiped it across, and then there it looked a little better now. So
talk about fog.
Exactly.
You were illustrating what I was saying. Dude, we're in fog. You're like, fog.
How crazy is that? It literally happened as you were talking about it.
There's that fog again. Yeah. So that's pretty much the balance. Like in a professional life, in short, is consistency, reliability. You're accountable. Yeah. People rely on you, and you're more than just your role. Now is super solid, possibly cheery guy 3 hours before. That's like, hey, we need some help doing something. Or do you mind going to like, we have a guest musician showing up from here. Can you drive the van over to get like, you just become a functioning member of society.
Yeah. You get
opposed to like spending half your day trying to kick a hangover, like, or whatever it is.
No more wasted time. I love it.
And then time to be useful. And then one time, a person who was advising me or was close to me in my program, the first time I went on tour with the program, he said, remember, be useful and not self-important. Because I was going out there with barely months. Yeah. And so he said, be useful, don't be self-important. Remind yourself to be useful, which is like, so instead of saying to the sound guy what I need, I'm going to introduce myself to the sound guy because he's a human being. He's not just a sound guy. Yeah. You know, the whole musician sound guy relationship is never always good. I'm going to make it good. Yeah. And, and introduce myself and say, this is what we do. If you need anything, I said to him, like, I'm a stagehand at home. I'm here to help. That's good. Because previously I would say, I'm a sound guy. I was creating already a competition. I don't want his job. I like my job better. I like being in the band. So I'm a stagehand at home, meaning I'm the guy who assists sound guys at home. Smart. So whatever you need, I'm here to help you. Yeah. Before that, you're like the best friend in the night. He's ready to do anything.
Well, and that's what you want, right? Of course, you want the sound guy to be your best friend because he does the sound or she does the sound, whatever, and that I think that attitude too of service, it just, it helps everything. And we also get to find out, real relationships in that type of setting. I think you mentioned it a while back. You said you still have your close friends and stuff that you have known forever. And same thing with me. I got, quite a few good homies that were just super tight and we've known forever. I still talk to these guys. And then, a lot of those acquaintances, I don't talk to those people as much as more because those relationships, they all revolved around alcohol or partying or stuff. And it doesn't make them bad people or them any worse than me or anything like that. There's just nothing in common there anymore. And so the relationships now that I've met, people in recovery and even my relationships with my old homies are so much stronger and better now today. And it's such a gift, man. It really is.
That's beautiful. And that's perspective. Yeah. That's just something that sobriety really showed me is perspective. Like the whole thing with the christening, it's like we look at things for like, oh, I used to party with them, or that's a great drinking event. And then you realize perspective says, no, that's a wedding. That's watching people get married. Yeah. You turned it into a drinking event. Yeah. And then the cool thing, what you mentioned, which I agree everything is, there was a few acquaintances that I didn't have necessarily from partying, but I never really, that leveled up. Because maybe I was just like a quick, hey, what's going on, kind of in a fog because I partied too much and they were responsible and maybe like would jam a few tunes and go home to their family, that I saw relationships build, a few relationships that actually leveled up with people that were acquaintances that I never got deep enough with, that turned out to be like super cool, solid human beings that I have a whole new thing in common with. And then you find out, oh, you do charity work? I want to do charity work. And it's like life just, there's a whole bunch of normal people out there that also live in service.
Yeah.
And you start attracting those kind of people.
Yep. It's that attraction rather than promotion. I dig it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good stuff, man. I don't, let's start to wrap this thing up, dude. It's been really great to have you on the podcast, dude. I can't wait to share this conversation and your story, insight, with everybody out there who listens to the podcast. I guess, if we were to kind of kick it off with like, or send us off, I guess, with your thoughts, any advice, any experience that you want to share right now with someone out there who's struggling, man. They're trying to figure it out. They're kind of lost. They're feeling alone. What would you say to someone out there, if you could encourage them and give them a little bit of a hope?
If somebody is truly looking for something different, or something's not working for you the way you're doing it, change is actually a good thing. And to remember, you're not alone. We're all here for you. Most programs of recovery, the biggest thing they say is we have to go help somebody else. And it's not, nobody's an expert. Nobody's a teacher. Like, I could never tell my doctor the truth, but I could tell everybody in my recovery program, once I became open to it, the truth, because nobody's judging you. And there's no stigmas, there's no judgment in recovery, because everybody shares the exact same affliction and story. And just try. And with Zoom, way easier to check it out. Oh, yeah. And another, which I didn't have, is like a sample platter. People that use Clubhouse, they have a few sober environments on Clubhouse for sober curious. So it's like open sobriety of different, some people, not every program is for everybody. I appreciate that, understand. I know it works for me. But we all kind of come together and people share their stories, which is how it works. And maybe you can relate, but it's open to the sober curious, which are the people that want to change, but they don't know how to. And sometimes walking into a traditional recovery meeting, and that's for people who want to change in life. I was fortunate. I was never physically addicted to anything. But if you have a deep affliction, there's places to go for help. Just try it. You don't lose anything by getting sober. You actually gain all the things you actually can never have.
Oh, that's good. That's good, dude. Good stuff, man. Where can folks reach out to you, find more information on Road Recovery, Instagram, and I'll make sure I put all these links in the show notes for anyone if you want to check them out.
So I'll get you, it reminds me, I got to get you all the links. So for me, I'm best found on Instagram. I have Static is Noise. I'll send you the thing for that. I do have one for the studio, the NoiseRoom, yada, yada, but I have a website for that. I'll get you that. But the Static is Noise is my Instagram that deals with either music and sobriety, and roadrecovery.org is their handle for the interwebs, and their I'm going to look up, I'll send it to you, but I'm not sure if it's like a Road Recovery _, but they have an Instagram as well.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And we do use that. But yeah, I'm on, and if they want to know more about Road Recovery, I'm a perfect, I could, if you find me first, you're going to get to Road Recovery. Because that's another thing I learned in recovery was I don't have to be the hero. I just got to be the guy who holds the door and puts the light on.
That's good, dude.
Because I might not be equipped to help you. So I'm not going to, it's like, hey, I need to fix my car. It's like, I ain't going to fix it, but I know a mechanic.
Dude, doesn't that is so good though, too, because it alleviates all the stress, and especially as men, we feel like we have to have all the answers for everything. I'll fix it. I can do it. It's like, nah, there's shit that I'm good at and there's shit that I'm not good at, but I might know somebody. I love that, dude. That's good stuff. Takes the pressure off a little bit. And I have the links, by the way. I didn't want to interrupt you. I think I have them already. roadrecovery.org, the NoiseRoomStudio.com, and then at Static is Noise on Instagram. And then I think I'll put the Road Recovery handle in here also.
Yeah, out of all the social medias, I'm probably the most active with Instagram. I just, it's a little lighter. I mean, it could get heavy, but it's like fun pleasantries. And when you have all people, like you're on there and like all the people we bro down with, and it's just like, hey, great. And when you're sober, you celebrate life. So if people are sharing like their kid's 3rd birthday, as a sober guy, I'm like, that's the coolest thing ever. Do I have kids? No. Do I plan on it? Not really sure. But I love the fact that you're enjoying your family. And I couldn't have done that not sober.
Good. I almost feel like we should title this podcast episode that when you're sober, you celebrate life. That's such a good one.
In other people's lives, not only yours. You celebrate life, I guess.
Yeah, that's good, dude. That's good. Well, right on, man. Thanks so much for taking the time to come out. I appreciate you, dude. And it's been great to get to know you a bit, and I'm looking forward to continuing that friendship along the way, man.
Amazing. I'm always here.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope something spoke to you. All the links that we talked about today will be in the show notes, so be sure to check those out. And share the podcast with a friend. Love you guys. Check us out at thatsoberguy.com. Peace, love, and respect. Keep your blood clean.